Hi, garden rebels. What a strange, weird day we had yesterday. Would you agree? I know it's old news by the time you get this, but it was a rainy day. I'm going to tell you, a rainy day, and nothing unusual about that, right? It's just that it was rainy all day. Again, nothing unusual about that. But the weird thing was especially here in the Pacific Northwest, it was rainy and warm. And that was really weird. It was kind of one of those rains where a rainy day where you can dance in the rain or garden in the rain, and that's what we did. But the reason why I bring this up is because rain certainly waters plants nicely, right? But it also cleans plants. I want to show you some examples of that. But it kind of reminded me that yes, we have to clean plants too. Technically not, but I'm going to give you some tips today on cleaning plants that would give you a little bit more bloom for the season, and some reasons why we clean plants, particularly geraniums. Geranium, right? But technically Pelargonium. Why is that? What happened? Why do we call a geranium when it's technically a pelargonium? The roots to that, by the way, goes way back 300 or so years ago. I find this really interesting, and it's about our simple geranium, Pelargonium. Carl Linnaeus, 300 years ago, our father of modern day taxonomy, he's the guy, the great scientist that developed this system to naming all of the plants and animals, including us, Homo sapiens. He developed that system on naming so we can classify our world, kind of organize our world in a way that kind of makes sense. And he figured out, hey, it's a two-name process, Homo sapiens. So he even named us. Homo meaning humans, Latin for humans, and sapiens meaning wise. Think about that for a bit. Okay, so picture that. 300 or so years ago, he names Homo sapiens. He also names the geraniums. And I think that's kind of neat. 300 years ago, Homo sapiens. 300 years ago, he names them geraniums. And the reason why, curiously, by the way, and I find this interesting, the way we name plants and animals on this planet is just it's a two-name process. Geranium, by the way, comes from the Greek term geronos, or haranos, and haranos. I don't know what a Greek sounds like, my apologies, which means crane, the bird a crane, because the seeds or the seed pod on geraniums resemble a crane's bill. I've got something to show you. This is a perennial geranium right here. See those blooms? This one's called Max Fry. It's a neat lavender type color. Take a look at the seed pods on these guys. Isn't that amazing? So Carl Linnaeus sees these seed pods and it resembles to him a crane's bill. Take a look at that. Like. I just find that so interesting. 300 years ago, that he sees this. It's called crane's bill, and even today, oftentimes, a perennial type of geranium is called crane's bill because of Carl Linnaeus. Well, it gets a little more confusing. Now, Carl Linnaeus is a famous scientist. People don't want to kind of go up against his reputation. And they start noticing that these geraniums the ones that came down from south. By the way, Pacific Northwest geraniums, these type of perennial geraniums, we do have a native geranium for our area. So kind of proud of that, Pacific Northwesterners. Anyway, down south, South Africa, way down south in Mexico, those southern hemisphere areas, technically South Africa is what they say, these geraniums resembled something ever so slightly different. And a group of scientists said, hey, we maybe make this a subclass of that Geraniaceae family. And so these are officially listed as a Pelargonium. So I like to think that. So Carl Linnaeus names all of these plants, and then, you know, we notice ever so slightly different things about them, and we subclass it. And so these scientists do their work, and then the next generation of scientists do their work, and so we just get better and better and better and smarter and smarter and smarter. And I just find that amazing. So so I think I like to start naming this Pelargonium, just talking it out loud. Pelargonium. How are your Pelargoniums doing? And see if that catches on. Anyway, Pelargonium, in a very diplomatic way, I thought maybe I'm reading too much in them. Pelargonium comes from the Greek term pelargos, and pelargos means stork. So crane, stork, kind of in that same family. Now, why am I talking about this? I wanted to mention a few things. A zonal geranium, these are those upright type of geraniums that we are very familiar with, and there are ivy geraniums, there are fancy leaf geraniums, all kinds of geraniums, pelargoniums, excuse me, all kinds of pelargoniums, and a zonal pelargonium is named zonal, by the way, because they have a zone of color in their leaf. So you notice that little band of color there? So that's why they're called zonal geraniums, zonal pelargoniums. So anyway, now why I wanted to mention all of that history is because with the rain cleaning the blooms, we tend to see things like this. We start aging those blooms, and I wanted to show you in detail how to deadhead those. Why do we deadhead those? It's because by clipping these off at the base, so we clip that right off, something like that, and I just did that with my fingers, is that we're encouraging the plant to produce more blooms. So we don't want these to turn into a seed pod. We'd rather see more blooms. And so by clipping those old blooms off, whenever you're around it, will encourage more blooms for the season. And just to finish those thoughts on Pelargoniums, that is that this is a Pelargonium hatorum. And it's those two names, Homo sapiens, Pelargonium hatorum. And hatorum literally means from the garden. So it's a stork's beak from the garden. So kind of interesting. So there's a couple of different ways that I noticed, and I asked Ryan this too. So what we could do is some of us will take it between our fingers and literally snap it like that. They'll snap it. Now this one's just bending, where sometimes it can be very brittly and snap. Like I know this right here will snap. Let me show you. Nope, it didn't snap. Or they'll pinch it off, so they'll just pinch it. But I don't do that. I tend to hold on to the entire stalk like that, and between my fingers hold on to it, and my little finger I'll pull this way, so it will snap somewhere between this point and my little finger. So I usually do that, so it pulls it out, pulls it down and out like that. So now, does it make a difference? That's the question I was asking. Does it really make a difference? And sometimes it's just about ease. This one snapped off really easy at the base. Let me grab another one here, this one right here. So I'll take this, I'm gonna just pull this out. And I notice I leave a little stalk. I don't know if you can see that right there. There's about an inch left of stalk. And yes, it'd be nice if it was cut all the way there, but the leaves hide that stalk, so I think it'll be okay. And very much like an umbilical cord, it'll turn brown and then just drop off. Anyway, just some interesting details on how to actually deadhead. I'm curious what you guys do as well. Do you pluck it between your fingers and literally break it off? Do you do your pinky technique and pull up? So you pull out or pull up on that, just like that. So you leave that little bit of a stalk there. Anyway, curious about that. Well, a little bit about deadheading, a little bit about rain, a little bit about science, a little bit about history. Guys, that's the show for the day. Always live your passion.